There's a whole moral construct that has gotten broken down. Misinterpretation of scripture, misinterpretation of how life works, of what capitalism really is, what socialism really is. And it's sanctified capitalism. It has a moral component to it. And so when you're leading in the community, you're leading in your family, you're leading in business, that does not mean you're a taker, that means you're a giver. And that's where everybody gets this flipped, that is throwing stones from the sidelines, throwing grenades from the sidelines. They've all got an opinion about, oh, that rich guy's evil, or wealth is evil, or whatever. When the reality is that there's a no higher percentage of evil wealthy people than there is evil poor people. It turns out evil is just evil. It turns out good is just good. Virtue is virtue. And it shows up in every demographic. But what happens with money is it magnifies the character qualities, good or bad, the junk in your life, the wonderful things in your life are all magnified with money. And so that's why we see someone has tremendous dysfunction. They get money, the dysfunction goes bananas. Sometimes we see pro athletes, misbehaving or something like that. But what we don't focus on is all the pro athletes that don't misbehave.
Right.
That made a lot of money.
Right.
That had great character. Yeah, there's an old thing, Aristotle started it. The Australians call it tall poppy syndrome. And the idea is that when you're growing a poppy field, if a single plant sticks its head up above the other plants, it is robbing nutrients from the others and must be cut down. So it's the ultimate in socialism, right?
Sure.
Everything must be evened out. There must be an even thing. So don't stick your head up because we must take you out.
Right.
And so it's not a uniquely American thing, but Americans are really good at vilifying success and simultaneously aspiring to become successful. We want to teach our children to become successful, but boy, that guy across the lake who's got a big house over there, we just yell at him when we have a few too many beers,
That's right.
I mean, that kind of stuff. I did do that in college, by the way. But it's envy and jealousy, which are obviously not virtues that are at the core of that. And here's the irony. It violates common sense. Let's just talk about it for a second. Let's say that you got a guy over here who's got a car repair shop, and you go in there, and he fixes your car, and he walks out and you say, well, it took 5 minutes, man. And he goes, well, how much is it? And he goes, oh, no charge. You fixed my car, it took you 5 minutes, and there was no charge. And he goes, yeah, just remember me when you need some repairs and tell your friends.
Sure.
So what do? You remember him, and you tell some friends. Fast forward 25 years later, he's got a chain of these throughout the region, the Southeast, the Northeast, the Midwest, with his name on it, because he's trained every one of his mechanics and every one of his managers to serve people, not rip them off, be kind. So his virtue literally causes, because you go to a car repair shop and you get treated right, you found a unicorn.
Oh, absolutely.
Come on,
Absolutely.
You tell everybody, right?
That's right.
You put this on the billboard. Transversely, okay, but rich people are evil. So this guy, instead, let's take him and say he's evil, all right? You go in there, takes him 5 minutes, he puts no parts on it, he turns 2 screws, and he says, that'd be $400. Yeah, you get me once.
Right.
But not only am I not coming back, but I'm going to tell everybody I know to not come back. And then that guy goes out of business and he blames the economy. The economy's bad. I was in the wrong neighborhood. The people in this neighborhood wouldn't, they weren't good people. The president's policies messed me up. The stock market crashed and got me. No, you were a freaking crook and the marketplace took you out. Or you were virtuous and servants and the marketplace prospered you. So it's very difficult to become wealthy in business when you're a crook, because people tell everybody you'll get discovered. And statistically, this is not theory and this is not espousing an opinion. If you actually look at the data, in other words, facts, okay, at this moment in time, the little man, starting from nothing, has a higher likelihood of building wealth in America than in any other system, in any other history, in the entire history of humankind. That's kind of bizarre. But you tell me a place and or a time when the little man had fewer barriers to go become somebody. Because I grew up in a neighborhood where that's what we always said, the little man. The little man can't get ahead. You can't do nothing. You can't get ahead. The little man can't get ahead. Well, I got to tell you, man, when we can just turn on a computer and all of a sudden we have a podcast, Joe Rogan sells it for $100 million. Not a bad day, Joe.
Right,
well
right.
done. I'm proud of you, my man. There's cognitive dissonance. There's a disconnect in your psychology. You'd have to be a psychopath to be able to actually pull that off. Rabbi Daniel Lapin talks about that in his book, Thou Shalt Prosper. He talks about the 10 reasons that Jewish people have had a tendency to prosper. throughout time in almost any situation, in almost any culture. And one of the 10 reasons is that they believe the making of money to be inherently moral. And when you say it's inherently moral, and if you don't believe that, to work against yourself, it's cross purposes. If you think wealth is evil, if you think money in and of itself is evil, which it is actually an inanimate object, bricks are not evil, bricks are not good, right? It's amoral. If you believe that something's evil, to work towards it is just anti-human experience. You can't do it. Your probability of actually accomplishing that is very low. You have to believe that the story is, I'm helping people with a $10 book, a $20 book, and I made $20 and I helped one. If I help 1 million, I made 20 million. So who served more? You know, Bill Gates or the guy who's mad at him? Again, to quote Rabbi, he says, the economy is not cake, it's candles. When you chop up cake, you know, if I get a bigger piece, by definition, you get a smaller piece, or vice versa. When candles, if I light a candle, my candle's not diminished. I can light 200 candles off of it, and my light is still the same as it was. And that's actually how the economy works, more than cake and pies. But people who are in the wealth inequality movement, or the socialism mindset, or the hating on the rich mindset, they have a cake mentality. And what that amounts to is their critical thinking skills have led them to a wrong conclusion, because their critical thinking skills are broken. Well, there's a lot of intelligence around it, but there's not much wisdom. And so I had to learn how to handle money. So then I went and said, okay, what works? And I found common sense, and I found scripture, and they lined up stuff like do a budget. Okay, so I went and did a budget. It worked. And then I told some guy, I said, hey, I did a budget and it worked. And he said, will you show me how to do it? I said, sure. Show you how to do it. Then got a little yellow pad out and a 10-key calculator, and there we went. And then I said, you know, I got out of debt. He goes, how'd you do that? I said, well, I listed the debts off smallest to largest. I read that somewhere and some guy did, because by the way, I didn't invent the debt snowball. I just got credit for it. And it just worked, because once I paid off the little one, I kind of got some hope, and then I did another one, I got more hope, and then I did another one, I got more hope, and the hope kept growing, and as the hope grew, my intensity increased, and my speed through the debt and the math increased. And I said, this is what I did. And he goes, can I do that? And I said, yeah, I'll walk with you. Let's do this. Have a coffee on Friday mornings. I'll bust your chops if you're not doing it, man. Come on, I'll hold you accountable. And so 2 guys, you know, and one of my buddies, right? And so we did this, and then I did it as a little thing. I started teaching a Sunday school class at my church, which was, you know, common sense, do a budget, get out of debt, live on less than you make. All things grandma said, all things the Bible says, right? And so it became this thing where I proof texted other people's information. And the thing you've got to do, if you want to win at an area of your life, the primary way I have been able to do that in my life, the areas that I'm good at, I'm not good at all of them. I've gotten better every year at every area. I'm discovering what we in business call best practices of someone else, okay? And so if 1/10 of 1/1,000,000th of 1% of the people who are millionaires did it with the lottery, or 96% of the people who are millionaires did it this other way,
right?
I'm kind of going with the 96% plan.
Yeah.
Now, what is that plan? Oh, crap. It's going to take a while. I got to invest in my 401k. I got to live on less than I make. I need to get my house and my other debts paid off, because when I don't have any payments, I got money to build wealth. Oh, crud. This is going to take 10 years. This is going to take 15 years. But it has a 96% probability, or whatever figure, 86% probability of working. This other one has a 1/10 of 1/1,000,000th of a percent of working. So which one is why? I mean, how do you lose weight? How do you get in shape? You eat less and you exercise more.
Right.
Whoa, I don't need a book from Oprah. You know, I just figured it out. But instead, I want an app. I want a plan. I want a shortcut. I want to take a pill. I want to do something that short circuits the probability. But what's the highest of all the people you know who lost weight and kept it off and became fit? Of all of those people, did any of them really use a trick?
No, they just use discipline and consistency.
Hustle and grind, baby.
That's it.
You know, they're the tortoise, they're not the hare. And of all the people you know who grew wonderful businesses, how many of them did it over 20 years? How many of them did it over 20 months? And how many of the ones that did it over 20 months even survived 20 years? You know, and so when you actually, I'm a practical guy. I'm just looking at the data. What works? But I've got to be more strategic and intellectual about how I'm displacing my energy, where I'm placing it, in order to get the win. Because what I discovered is get rich quick almost never works. Get rich slow does. Become successful quick, instantly, add water, almost never works, and when it does, it doesn't sustain. I don't like that result. So that's a hot burner mentality, and that is my personality. But I had to overrule that as an act of my will, as an act of intellect, and say, all right, I'm going to use all of that hot burner energy to run the whole race. And I got to make the decision to play long, even though it's not my nature. Because otherwise I just go, well, I'm a victim of my personality. I'm not a victim of my personality. It's a freaking decision. Change. And I think it's one of the Ramsey differences in the whole financial space. It's a brand differentiator, is that personal finance is 80% behavior. It's only 20% head knowledge. We all know what to do. We all know how to lose weight. We're looking for a shortcut. We're looking for a trick. Our own broken psychology, our own broken emotions, our own sin in our life, whatever it is that causes us to see the world through skewed glasses, causes us to not do the obvious common sense things that are in front of us. In order to get out of debt, part of it is I have to address the math. Part of it is I have to have a tactical solution like the debt snowball. But as I'm working that debt snowball, I start to realize why I went into debt. I start to realize I was trying to look like somebody I wasn't. I'm trying to buy stuff that I don't need with money that I don't have to impress people I don't really like. And all of a sudden, I don't really care what people think. And that change inside of me accelerates the debt thing. So as I'm working on a budget with my spouse, I realized we weren't communicating about a lot of stuff. And now we start communicating about this money thing. And the number of people come to us after Financial Peace University and go, you saved our marriage. And I went, you went to the wrong class. I mean, come on. For a number of people, they went, oh, okay, I get it. I got to do these baby steps. I got to get this emergency fund in place. I need to get these debts paid off. I need to start systematically ongoing in funding my retirement. I need to work to get the house paid off in 10 years. Because the next time, not if, when something happens, 911, the planes go into the buildings, 2008, dadgum, economy crashes on a housing bubble, and then, we have 2020 and 2021. I just don't know what the big bad wolf is going to look like the next time he comes huffing and puffing, but I want to be in the brick house. And that's why we admire people who are healthy, wealthy, and successful, because they're unusual. The neat news is you can just decide. You can just decide. Nobody's stopping you. The only person stopping you is the person in your mirror. I'd say okay is more of an enemy than bad. If things are bad, sometimes like when I went broke, that's your wake-up call, and you say never again. But just mediocrity is easy to just sit there. There's nothing waking you up. There's nothing smacking you around to go, you got to fix this, bozo, But you have a heart attack, you quit eating biscuits and gravy, man. I mean, they do a biscuitectomy by opening up your chest, then you will all of a sudden change your healthy eating habits,
that is
right? True. So, but just eating and going on, it's the same thing with money. The problem in America is you can have a really good life and suck at handling money. Compared. But I mean, if you really want to be somebody, if you really want to take it to the next level, if you really want to be game on, if you really want to leave a mark, if you really want to change your family tree, if you want to have a sense of dignity, the ability to feed poor people en masse, the ability to buy toys for an entire community of kids where the whole thing was wiped out with a flood, if you want to be able to do stuff like that, it takes money. And if you want to play at a level of greater joy, a level of greater enthusiasm, you got to pay a price to get there. You don't get to stand on the podium at the Super Bowl unless you have worked your butt off to get there and had everybody tell you you're doing it wrong the whole time, and still you're the one standing up there holding the trophy. Shut up. And let me go ahead and give you a clue. You need a bigger why than just, I want more stuff. There's nothing wrong with wanting more stuff. That's a first level thing, but you won't stay at it just to get a nicer car. You won't stay at it just to get a nicer house. Noble motives will drag you a lot further into your why, and those are decisions. By the way, there's nothing wrong with having nice house and nice cars. I got both, okay?
Right.
So it's okay. But get you some, right? But that's not the answer. You eat enough lobster, it tastes like soap. I mean, really, I love lobster, but enough of it is enough. But the point is, you satiate yourself with input, but output you never get tired of. You never get tired of. So when you want to change your family tree, when you're looking at your grandbaby, I got 7 of them, and I know that the decisions we've made over the last 30 years will affect their kids' kids. I know it. Mathematically, it's really almost impossible for them to screw this up. I mean, really, it's ridiculous, right? Listen, the most fun you'll ever have with money is generosity. And once you get that nailed down, then you'll go get you some. You go get you some, and sort of you can give some. It changes everything. And so Folks, go be a Baby Steps millionaire. You can do it.